everybody. So, looking at your rhetorical analysis drafts and thinking about some of the conversations that I've had with some of you over the past few days, because we've, done video chats and stuff. that was a deep sigh. No, this is not a bad or scolding video, but here's a thing that I've been noticing. Lots of people really struggled coming from the checklist to the template paragraph in the sense that their template paragraph did not correspond to the stuff that they put in their answers on the checklist. And, I mean, in one sense that's fine, because sometimes as you are working, you change, you realize that you didn't understand something about the piece you're analyzing the first time around, and so you change your mind, and so the template paragraph doesn't match the checklist because you just realized, oh, I need to correct something. That's fine. But in a lot of cases, I think what's happening is that they don't match because you don't realize that they belong together, that these two exercises rely on the same sets of information. And I think the underlying reason for that, really the only way I can see that you would not see these two pieces of work using the same sets of information, is if you aren't really sure what Orwell is doing in his essay, or, and this is key, if you aren't sure that you have understood what he's doing in his essay. So if you are sure about what Orwell's purpose is and who his audience is and what kinds of evidence he's using and how he is putting that evidence together on the page, if you are sure of those things, then when you are looking at the template paragraph, filling in those blanks is easy because they're just like, his purpose in this essay is to. Well, you already know what his purpose is, so you just fill that sucker in. If you aren't sure, then it's a real challenge to figure out what to put there. And in a lot of cases, I mean, maybe some of you genuinely don't understand George Orwell's Politics in the English Language. That's possible. But based on conversations we've had in class and the things that we've talked about over email and in video chat, I don't think that that is actually the big problem for most people. Okay? I don't think that's it. I kind of think what's actually going on is that you do understand what Orwell is saying, and then you keep looking for more. I think people are making it more complicated than it has to be. Orwell's advice is not easy to follow, right? It's difficult to take his advice about writing and consistently apply it. It's hard. But it isn't complicated, right? It isn't hard because it's confusing. It isn't hard because he is saying anything that's difficult to get your head around. It's just hard because we've been trained to write this other kind of way, and as he says, there's something attractively easy about talking and writing in broad generalizations that don't really say very much. His point that he makes in Politics in the English Language is basically this. If you know what you mean, if you have a thing that is worth saying and you know it's worth saying and why, then the process you go through in writing is to think about the details that someone would need to know in order to understand your point, and find words to explain exactly those things. When you mean what you say, when you will own that, the process that you go through is just saying what you mean. I'm going to say that again. When you mean what you're about to say, that leads you to say exactly what you mean. When you are not willing to mean what you say, then it's much harder to say what you mean because you can't afford to. And so you end up saying things and writing things that look like those 5 examples Orwell gives us of talking all around the point. He says several times in the essay that, he says it in different words, different ways. This is kind of part of his repetition. But he says essentially that a lot of the vague, wordy language that he is seeing in political speech and writing stems from the speaker or writer's reluctance to be direct and straightforward about what they actually have in mind. That can be because they haven't pinned down for themselves what they actually have in mind, right? Some of your essays said that Orwell's point is that writers should choose better words. Yeah, but in that case, I know that you have not pinned down for yourself what you actually have in mind, because better is not a word that is doing anything. Like, what would his point be? To choose worse words? You use better because you haven't figured out what better would look like, right? Because if you meant specifically that writers should use shorter words, or that they should use more words, fewer words, you would say that specific thing instead of better, and we don't know what better means. This happens in all kinds of contexts, and it is absolutely not a student-specific problem, okay? The goal here of a class like this one is to help you write and speak and think more clearly than these other folks who are doing the thing Orwell is complaining about. You can't... one of my favorite sci-fi shows from the 1990s, okay, so it's been a long time ago, but one of my favorite shows, Babylon 5, had a line of dialogue in which a character said this: "In my experience, if you do not say what you mean, you can never mean what you say." If you talk all around the topic and you use euphemisms or try to disguise what's actually going on, or you just use a bunch of buzzwords that sound appropriate, then you aren't really going to be conveying a sincere, direct meaning. Sincerity and clarity go hand in hand. And I actually think most of you got that from his reading, like from the essay from Orwell that we read. I think most people got that he is an advocate for clarity in writing, and that he thinks clarity in writing is a product of clarity in thinking, and that when we have vague, confusing, weird-looking sentences, it's probably because we had vague, confused, weird-sounding thoughts. I think most people got that. And then, I don't know, maybe you felt like it needed to be harder than that, or maybe you felt like there had to be more to the story, I don't know. But lots of people got that far and then kept digging, and there's no there. Okay, that's it. That is the point. You've got it. What the challenge is now is analyzing what evidence Orwell uses to make that point, and what the rhetorical devices are that he uses to explain that evidence. Okay? That's what the rhetorical analysis has to do. It's not an easy assignment, but it's also not one that is intellectually beyond you. Okay? Once you stop digging for, like, what's the hidden secret, then you can get to the meat of identifying what Orwell uses as evidence to prove his points, and what his rhetorical techniques are that he uses to explain the evidence he puts on the page. That's kind of it. All right, we'll talk more about all of this in your online drafting / revision worksheets tomorrow. In the meantime, I hope you're having a great Sunday afternoon. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.